Well, thanks. If you just go over to the next slide. So yeah, welcome. Well, sorry, apologies for the technical difficulties. Hopefully this runs okay this way instead. But yeah, so today's just talking about the impact of the fashion industry, how that can be really linked to fast fashion, what fast fashion is, and then something that we can all do at home when it comes to our own wardrobes and our own shopping habits. So next slide. So just linking back to our sustainability behaviours that we're really promoting through this webinar series, it's all about using resources wisely, and then it's an opportunity to get involved, give back to community if you're donating clothes as well. Next slide, please. I wanted to cover this sustainability topic not as someone who is a pro at this at all, but more as someone who is working on their own shopping habits. So this is maybe my confessions to you all as a shopaholic, some of the things that I'm doing to try and reduce my shopping habits, my footprint for my clothing, and yeah, hopefully there's something that everyone can take away and implement in their own lives as well. Next slide. So for me, I watched a documentary a while ago by Stacey Dooley, all about the impact of fashion, and I was quite shocked by it. And then these are some of the headlines more recently that I just kept seeing again and again, and I was quite shocked that my clothing addiction would have this impact on the environment. And yeah, it's something that I kept seeing more and more, and I've felt sort of obliged to try and do something about it. So next slide, I try and put some numbers to this. So every year there's 100 billion items of clothing that is produced. The sector, the textile industry, is only expected to continue to grow and grow at such a huge rate, and it actually has the second highest environmental price tag, second to the oil industry. And that was something that I was quite surprised by and shocked that it was so high, and what was the impact. So next slide is sort of an overview of sort of the main sort of 6 areas. So around human rights, working conditions and pay, land use and degradation, especially that can be linked to really cotton farming, the water use as well as water pollution, microplastic pollution, textile waste and carbon emissions. And next slide. All of these 6 areas are just increased by this new area of fashion, which we call fast fashion. So fast fashion can be defined as cheap, trendy clothing that samples ideas from the catwalk or celebrity culture and turns them into garments in the high street stores at a crazy speed, and that's all to meet customer demands, that we've got the latest, the newest styles out on the market as fast as possible. And when this is happening, that's really when you have the sort of the worst environmental impact for fashion. It's just that this overproduction, overconsumption is what's making fashion one of the world's largest polluters. And yeah, there's some of those brands up there that are sort of the main contributors, and yeah, much to my despair, Zara is one of those as well, which is one of my faves. I've had to try and reduce where I shop. So yeah, next slide please. So textile waste. So globally, an estimated 92 million tons of textiles waste is created each year. To put that into perspective, that's around a rubbish truck full of clothes ending up in landfill every second. And so some of the reasons why that is just so huge is there's material scraps from the textile industry, so obviously offcuts of bits of material that will go to waste. But also, again, with these fast fashion trends, retailers are making inexpensive, non-durable clothing, and it might just last a few wears before actually it starts to fade or the patterns come off a little bit, and we don't want those items anymore, and they just go straight to waste. And something which I found again really quite shocking is for internet retailers, it's often cheaper for them to burn or dump returned items of clothing when we're doing those big online shops. I know I was guilty of this, doing a big online shop, trying on lots of things, actually realizing that I don't like it, or getting multiple sizes, returning it all, and actually lots of those returns might have ended up in landfill. And the effect of this is there's lots of greenhouse gases that are used in the process to make those clothes, so that's all gone to waste. And also the greenhouse gases that are going to be released from the landfill when those items of clothing end up in landfill as well. So yeah, one of the easiest way to reduce our footprint when it comes to online shopping is just to order what we really want and what we actually intend to keep. Next slide, please. So the fashion industry is estimated to be responsible for 10% of global carbon emissions, and a lot of that can be linked back to fossil fuels. So most of our clothing that we have is actually polymer based. So that is your nylon, acrylic, polyester. It's all made in a really energy intensive process, and it's going to be using a lot of fossil fuels. And you can see in that infographic as well on the slides that most of the emissions from just sort of your average t-shirt and jeans is from the production. So that is your fossil fuels. Next slide, please. When we think about land use and the degradation of soil, it's mostly linked back to cotton farms. That's just because we've got sort of a monoculture, which you can see in that photo, sort of as far as the eye can see, just a huge expanse of cotton plants. And when we're doing this really intensive farming, there's a real high risk of topsoil erosion. So that loss of the fertile soil, that's going to be lost as well. And then as the cotton production expands, as these farms expand, you've got deforestation and habitat loss as well. And then also the use of chemicals is also going to strip the soil of its natural fertility as well. So yeah, so very damaging for land use degradation. Next slide. Human rights. So due to the pandemic, health crises, conflict and natural disasters, these all really strain a supply chain. And often when you've got a strained supply chain is when you've got sort of the most amount of human rights violations. And again, in that infographic, you can see the breakdown of a cost of t-shirt and actually the tiny percentage that goes towards actually paying the worker. And this model of a sort of low pay back to the worker is really amplified again by this fast fashion culture where we're looking at low cost fashion and this low production cost as well. Next slide, please. So a question to sort of everyone on the webinar today. What percentage of world's water pollution do you think can be linked back directly to the textile industry? So just to give you a bit of an idea, cotton production is responsible for huge consumption of water, but then also we've got the water is going to be polluted with the pesticides, herbicides that is used in cotton production as well. And then also often from where the clothing is made and from the factories, there's often leaks of wastewater containing chlorine, those heavy metallic chemicals that will be directly released into the local rivers. And yeah, so that could be from sort of washing the fibres at the factory, bleaching the clothing, dyeing the clothes, any sort of final finishing products. They can also be leached into local water sources. So yeah, so what percentage do we think of world's water pollution can be linked back to the textile industry? It's next slide. Oh yeah, so yeah. Oh sorry, I'm looking up at my screen for the slides. Yeah, so 20%, which is I found again quite a shocking fact. And Next slide. So the final area of sort of impact of the fashion industry onto the environment is around microplastic pollution. So it's estimated around 35% of microplastic pollution can be linked back to textiles, and most of that is sort of from our laundry loads. And yeah, most of that again is coming from polyester, your nylons, those small bits of plastic, synthetic plastic bits that are coming off during the wash are then leached out into our watercourses. So next slide. So yeah, so what can we do about it? How can we reduce our environmental impact? And really, it's sort of changing our views of society, of how we view our clothing. You know, in the moment we are buying more and more, and we're wearing it for less and less time. And that's really where we try to break these habits of fast fashion. And yeah, if we go on to the next slide, please. And yeah, quite the opposite of fast fashion. One of the solutions is slow fashion. So it's really advocating for environmental and social justice in the fashion industry. And it's really cutting down on the amount that we are buying, wearing clothes for a longer amount of time, and also it's going to save us money as well if we're buying less. So yeah, so some of the ways that we can do this on the next slide. So one way we can do this is renting outfits. I think this is quite, maybe people think more of this as an option when it comes to suits, but also there's an option to rent out nice dresses as well for girls. Also, one of my friends is going to 5 weddings this season, and she was like, what am I going to wear to all of these? And I pointed her towards renting an outfit. It gives you an opportunity to try new styles, try a different style of dress, save money rather than buying a new outfit for every event. And then obviously you're reducing your environmental impact whilst always having a new outfit for each wedding or whatever event that you've got coming up. And I've listed a few on the side there of some of the companies that offer this service. Next slide, please. So I found this to be quite a fact that it sort of hit home with me, that it's estimated that actually only 20% of the items of clothing that we actually own are the ones that we actually wear. And I know, thinking now, if I can picture my wardrobe, there's always certain items of clothing that I always reach for, and there's probably things in there that I've had from last summer that I haven't touched and I probably won't wear this summer either. So capsule wardrobes are all about saving money, saving time when you've got that sort of, they call it decision exhaustion, when you've got such a huge amount of clothes that you'd only just reach for those same few pieces. And it's really about having a mix and match wardrobe with sort of versatile quality pieces that you can always reach for and always have a new outfit, because all of your pieces of clothing match up together. And it doesn't have to be this picture where it's just all sort of similar colours. You can still have your patterns, still have things that are personal to your style. It's not just about sort of having sort of solid colours that will match together. So still an opportunity to make it your own. Next slide, please. So how do we know which brands are falling short when it comes to their sustainability? Which brands might be doing some greenwashing when it comes to their sustainability rating as well? And there's a good website called Good On You, and they use over 500 data points, and they use all publicly available information. So that could be from the company's website, but also for different accreditations like Fair Trade or the Global Organic Textile Standard as well. And yeah, so they use all this publicly available information, and it's really about promoting accountability through transparency. So holding these companies to account and actually highlighting those companies that are not performing very well when it comes to sustainability. And I've put up just like the headlines for the Zara rating. Again, much as it hurts my heart, Zara again is not that great when it comes to sustainability. And if you go onto the website, you can see some of those companies that have been rated 4, 5 stars when it comes to sustainability. So yeah, there's a lot more detail than I've just included in this slide, but yeah, it's a good resource to use. Next slide, please. So another way that we can reduce the environmental impact of our wardrobe is actually just caring for the clothing that we do have. When you have a button fall off, or when you've got a hole in a sock, it might just be really tempting to just bin those items, but actually taking the time to mend them, repair them, and increase their lifespan. Also looking at the washing cycle that you use. Higher temperatures are going to cause more strain, more damage to your clothing. So actually reducing the temperature and looking at how you can best sort of care for your clothing. And then also, if you're very handy with a thread and needle, actually upcycling clothing. So turning a shirt into a dress, or it could just be maybe turning a dress into a cord, or elbow patches and things like that, if you're a little bit more savvy when it comes to sewing. And last slide. And then probably what people probably think of most when it comes to sustainability and sustainable fashion is actually secondhand. So donating clothing items that you're not going to wear, or selling those on Depop, Vinted, eBay, or going vintage shopping, thrifting. I think this is something that, again, it's more accessible than it has ever been before to do this. And again, it's great for environmental impact, but also it's great for your wallet as well. So next slide, in summary. So in summary, sort of, if you want to make the most amount of impact when it comes to sustainable fashion, is really about reducing what we are buying. It's about reducing consumption, reducing spending habits, whether that's just questioning, do I really need a 4th pair of blue jeans when I've got 3 at home? Maybe it's renting an outfit rather than buying new for every item. There's a quote from a Lizzie McGuire movie, I don't know if people have seen that, about outfit rewearing, whether it's a capsule wardrobe. Again, these are sort of where you can make the most amount of impact, but also repairing anything. So we said anything where you're extending the life of your clothing items you own already, or extending the life even further if that means selling them on, donating to someone that will find them useful. And then I've just got on the last slide a quote from Vivienne Westwood, which is, buy less, choose well, and then make it last. That is the sort of, in the nutshell, of the last 20-30 minutes of how you can sort of make the most amount of impact when it comes to reducing your impact through your clothing. And then on the last slide, I've linked the Good On You website, so you can have a look at some fashion brand ratings, you know, who's performing well, who's not performing. And I can't find the original documentary anywhere, but the Staley Dooley documentary that I watched, there's clips of it online. So yeah, hopefully, maybe so I didn't look in the right places, and hopefully you guys can find the full documentary, but I found that to be quite shocking. So yeah, I don't know if there's any questions, and yeah, apologies for the technical difficulties.
Thanks, Olivia. That was really interesting. It was a really well put together presentation. Covered everything. I will have a quick look at the chat. See if we've got any questions jump out. Hold on 2 seconds. My chat's now playing up, so hold on.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of questions coming in, but yeah, I know it's Brian's saying he's now got an excuse not to buy his daughter Zara clothes, so that's good. Yeah, lots of yeah, but very eye-opening. And I have to say, some of those figures that were coming out were really shocking. The fact that they burn returns or send them straight to landfill. That's just appalling. That's just morally just wrong in every way, isn't it? Give them away at least.
Yeah, it's quite. I mean, I noticed at uni that, you know, I was going out sort of multiple times a week, and I always needed a new outfit for every time I was going out, and that's where I found myself, you know, always reaching for the Boohoo and for the Pretty Little Thing and not thinking about sort of the environmental footprint. So it's it's something I found quite shocking, and hopefully there's little nuggets that people can take away and implement themselves.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? We'll share we'll share the slides, and we'll put them in the text. I know we've got a couple of links in there and stuff, so that'll be useful. Also, this has been recorded. We'll put it on the YouTube channel if people want to share it with their teams and let them see what they've missed. I'm more than happy to do that. But I think that rounds out pretty nicely. If any other questions before we wrap up? No? Okay. So thanks, Olivia. That was really good and really informative. So really appreciate it. And we'll see you next week. I think there is going to be an email coming out with a list of the next series of events for June. So that'll be coming out shortly. But thanks again for attending. We appreciate you coming along, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, and apologies, for my technical difficulties. So yeah.
No, well done. Do you on your phone? It's fine, absolutely fine. Great, thanks everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thanks all. Bye.
Cheers.